Welcome to our presentation about the colonial and early national period by Milan, Niklas, Fran and Stefan. Enjoy!
To start off, I'm going to give you a quick historical context to give you a better understanding of the history. It started with the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus in 1492. People from France, Spain or England started to come to America for their own purposes and to create a new world. They colonized the land because of religious beliefs or the hope in gaining financial prosperity. The Europeans came with thoughts, ideas and beliefs which also influenced people to make a literary movement to America. So the settlers started to write about their experience, and the writings were usually very practical and straightforward, and often derivative of literature in Great Britain or focused on the future. Examples give either John Smith, Nathaniel Ward, John Winthrop or even Anna Bradstreet. The earliest works from 1608 were written by John Smith, the president of the Jamestown community, as he wrote about his experience in Virginia. He is also the one who claims to be saved from his execution by the chieftain's daughter Pocahontas. One of the central concerns in colonial America was the religion. Great examples are Nathaniel Ward and John Winthrop, who decided to dedicate their work to this topic. Nathaniel Ward submitted his Body of Liberties in 1639 to the Massachusetts General Courts, and the Journal of John Winthrop was published in 1630. One of the first collections of poetry came from Anna Bradstreet, who wrote about America in a Puritan style. This explains why her religious lyric expressed her Puritan beliefs and reflect the area and community where she lived.
The American Revolution, also called United States War of Independence or American Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783, was an insurrection by which 13 of Great Britain's North American colonies won political independence and went on to form the United States of America. The war followed more than a decade of growing estrangement between the British Crown and a large and influential segment of its North American colonies. The Declaration of Independence in 1776 marked a turning point in American history, not only politically, but also culturally. The period from 1776 to 1800 is often referred as to the Revolutionary Era in literature, because it was characterized by new ideas and styles that were different from the European models and shaped the American literary identity. One of the most important aspects of this era was the emphasis on political writing. Many American writers, inspired by the ideals of the Revolution, used their voice to promote their independence and democratic values. One of the most influential political writers of the time was Thomas Paine, whose pamphlets Common Sense and The American Crisis gathered support for the Revolution, and the Federalist Papers from 1787 to 1788 by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay shaped the political direction of the United States. Another important figure in this era was Benjamin Franklin, whose autobiography was published after he died in 1791. Franklin's work contained new ideals of individualism and self-determination that were central to the revolution, and his emphasis on self-improvement, hard work, and his motivations in pursuing a long life of active civic participation helped the creation of the American dream. The Revolutionary Era was also characterized by an exploration of other genres, including poetry and fiction. American poets began to explore new topics and forms of expression, neglecting European ideas and ideologies. This era was the beginning of a distinct American voice that was characterized by a focus on real experiences and ordinary people. One of the most important works of fiction from this period was The Power of Sympathy, the first American novel written by William Hill Brown in 1789. This novel explored themes of love, betrayal, and consequences of moral choices. Another important poet of the era was Philip Frontenac, who was known for his patriotic verses that celebrated the ideals of the revolution, so much that early American newspapers called him the poet of the American Revolution. Frontenac's work was marked by a deep love of nature and a sense of individualism that would later be reflected in the Transcendentalist movement. The revolutionary era was also marked by a surge of women's writing, as female writers began to challenge traditional gender roles and advocate for women's rights. Women like Phyllis Wheatley, an enslaved African woman who wrote about her experiences in her first book, Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral from 1773, and Judith Sargent Murray, challenged traditional beliefs about gender and have shown the intellectual and artistic capability of women. With the writings of black people like Phyllis Wheatley and Oludawa Ekuyano, with his autobiography The Interesting Narrative from 1789, the first ideas of abolition were born.
American literature in the early 19th century, specifically between 80 and 1820, was marked by a shift towards a more distinctively American literary identity. Not only the political view on America and the cultural differences and writers played a role. The American identity and the growing sense of a national identity were big parts of the literature. This period of time emerged a lot of important literary figures who helped to shape the literary landscape of the United States. One of the most notable literary movements of this area was the Romanticism movement, which emphasized emotion and individualism over reason and tradition. The focus of this movement was the natural world, a fascination with the supernatural, and an interest in exploring the inner workings of the human mind and soul. One of the best examples for this time is Washington Irving, who is best known for his short stories and essays. His most famous and well-known works is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, a classic example for Romanticism, which is still today read all over the world. It was one of the first works of fiction by an American author that became popular outside of the United States, which was a big step in American literature. Another important figure was Edgar Allan Poe, who is considered to be one of the most significant and best writers in American literature. Poe's works were known for their haunting imagery and psychological complexity. Other notable writers were Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Henry David Thoreau. Books like New England Primer were used to teach children the alphabet and how to read. In conclusion, American literature in the early 19th century was important because it marked a shift towards a more distinctively American literary identity and reflected the social and political changes that were taking place in the United States at that time. The period is often referred to as the early national period. During this time, the United States was establishing itself as a nation. Some other important books are, for example, Sketches of Upper Canada by John Howison, 1821, The Spy by James Fenimore Cooper, 1821, The Legend of Montrose by Sir Walter Scott, 1819, which is set in Scotland but still very popular in the US, The Sketchbook by Washington Irving, 1820, and all these works span a range of genres from novels to essays to political treatises, but all have one thing in common. They all reflect the values, concerns, and experiences of Americans during this period, including the themes of nationalism, democracy, individualism, and the American frontier.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you learned something new.